Be boundless. Hi, welcome everyone to the second episode of Be Boundless. As you recall, Be Boundless is a way of life. It's about maximizing every moment of your life and ensuring that you are the best version of yourself through your life. Today, we are going to talk about a fantastic quality which is very, very important for everybody to have. It's called growth mindset. And so I got my friend Shantanu here again. Hey, Shantanu, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you doing?
So let me ask you this question. Embarrassing question, maybe. How much do you know about growth mindset, my friend?
Well, a little bit here and there, but I would like to hear, let's say, a more specific understanding of it. I have a general, broad idea, as I'm sure maybe everyone can deduce from, let's say, the term. But what is it exactly I'm looking forward to hearing about?
So I hit upon growth mindset in a very serendipitous fashion, right?
All right.
Very lucky to have reached, to have found that. The way it happened is, I've been delivering lots of talks ever since I had my crippling disorder and I had to reinvent my life as a motivational speaker. And I had been delivering many talks, and mostly learnings from my life. And then I approached one of my very good friends who used to be a colleague at HP. And they were having a annual conference, and he wanted me to deliver a talk there. So I was very happy to do that. But his one condition was that in HP, their buzzword was growth mindset. So I should talk about growth mindset. Now, at that juncture, which was about 4 years back, I had no clue about what growth mindset is. The only growth mindset I knew was that if I eat too many pizzas, I put on too much of weight. Right?
Right.
Anyway, so I'm never one to refuse a great opportunity. I said, absolutely, I can deliver a fantastic talk about growth mindset. So I said, okay, great. And we fixed up the date. It was luckily I had about a month. In that month, I read Carol Dweck's seminal book about growth mindset. So she is the one who discovered or actually coined this term, growth mindset, through years and years of research at Stanford, I think, right? She's a professor at Stanford.
Okay.
And so she came up with this concept called growth mindset. And I read that book and I said, wow, this is my life. Whatever she has written is every single learning that I have got from my life. Every time I have gone through a setback, it is very much attributable to not having growth mindset. And every time I have gone through some fantastic learning phases and growth phases, it's when I have demonstrated growth mindset.
So, and what are some attributes of what that is? What is that entail?
Yeah. So first, let me give you the definition of growth mindset. Right. Most people think it's just about growth. In a corporate term, how do you grow in an organization, etc. But that's not really what growth mindset is. So, according to Carol Dweck, growth mindset is the belief that any ability can be internalized or acquired by substantial amount of practice and also employing the right strategies. Right? Now, there are many people who have this belief. Now, there are a lot of other people who have the opposite belief. They believe that any ability is inherently you're born with, and hence it cannot be enhanced. It is a fixed amount that you're born with, and that's the amount you'll have, right? So that's called fixed mindset. Okay. So growth mindset and fixed mindset, the manifestations are very interesting. So you have something as simple as, people who believe that they have growth mindset are usually very interested in taking up difficult challenges. So let me ask you this. How comfortable were you taking an exam?
Putting me on the spot here. But overall, I was not a great student, if I'm being honest, but I was definitely not comfortable taking most exams.
Okay. So one of the things that happen when you're and I'm not saying you have a fixed mindset, right? So,
Right.
we
I'll
all
try not to take it personally.
manifest fixed mindsets at points in time. We all manifest growth mindset at points in time. So when you are manifesting a fixed mindset, you're scared of taking on challenges. You're scared of pitting your brains against something which is difficult, or pitting your abilities against something which is difficult, because you believe that you have only fixed amount of that ability, and if you fall short or fail, that is a reflection on your lack of ability. So those people are wary of taking on challenges because they think that they will look like idiots at the end of it, right? So if they fail. Whereas the guys who are growth mindset oriented, they love challenges. They go after challenges because they're not scared of failure, because they know that if they fail, it just means that their current level of understanding of the subject is not good enough. They need to pick up more ability, and they can do that by practice. So they are actually looking at challenges as a way to measure their current level of ability. And hence they actually love going through challenges, because they want to know how much they know. They want to know how much their ability is. And if it's not good enough, then they can practice more, or employ new strategies and become better at it. So that is one of the key differences between somebody with growth mindset and fixed mindset. So Shantanu, my friend, go for your exams now.
No, I mean, it's very interesting. When I was starting to become a teacher, when I was still not really full-fledgedly teaching any classes by myself, I wanted to figure out sort of what is the best way to teach someone. Should I be giving them, in questions like, should I be giving them easy tasks to start off with? Or, usually there's a couple of students in the class that have higher aptitude, and do you teach them and hope the others come up? Or do you teach towards the people who are struggling and slow down for the kids that have higher aptitude? And when I was doing a little bit of research on this, there was a very similar thing. I would not be surprised even if Carol Dweck was the person who conducted this study. There was a study I came across where basically they had given students tests in multiple classrooms, and they told all of those students at the end of that test that they had done extremely well. They told about half of them that they had done extremely well because they were geniuses or they were talented. And then they told the other half that they did that and they did really well because of the amount of time and effort that they put into that subject or that class. And what they ended up finding over time is that the children who were told that due to talent or to a natural born gift, that's why they did well, those children were less likely to do difficult things and take on difficult tasks. And the children who were told, it's your hard work, it's your growth mindset towards these things, and that is what's making you so capable, those children were more likely to not only take on difficult tasks, but also enjoy those tasks more. So it's very interesting that you're bringing this up.
Shantanu, my friend, you seem to have understood growth mindset inside out. This is exactly what growth mindset is about. In fact, one of the things they say, how to inculcate growth mindset in children is through telling them whenever they do a good job that you really worked hard towards it. I commend you for that. Rather than say, oh, what a genius you are, oh, you're so brainy, you are so talented. The moment you say that, the kids actually get a fixed mindset, because they believe that they're born with this intelligence or born with this talent, and then they're scared of taking on more challenges. Instead of they say, wow, you really worked hard. I could see how hard you work for this, and congratulations for that. That's going to give you a growth mindset kid. So then,
and it's Go on.
No, I think your example was fantastic. This is a classic example of how to build growth.
Yeah. And I'm also guilty of it myself. I remember in school, when my parents would come for parent-teacher conferences, I had a teacher that looked at them and said, he will do exactly the amount he needs and what he knows he can do without putting in too much work. Because at some point someone told him that he can do that and get by.
Yeah.
And, it took a lot of time and effort to realize that, especially as those kids grow up and get older and put into situations where that is no longer enough, they have to realize that at some point, someone has been working 5 years on this skill that you may have a natural inclination towards.
Yeah.
But in those 5 years, they've surpassed you, even though they may not have had that skill to begin with.
And that's a very, very important thing, right? So, yeah, so some of the other manifestations of growth mindset versus fixed mindset is people with growth mindset are very eager to learn new things. And hence they take on challenges, which the fixed mindset people are reluctant to take on. And they learn on the job. So they are very good at completely trying out new paths, new ways of doing things. So their creativity and innovation ability are much higher because they don't mind failing, right? And so they take on additional stuff, and then they learn towards that, and their inclination towards learning is higher. A couple of other ones. One is they also don't mind learning from anybody. So in organizations, so typically I've worked in all these large corporates, etc. Right? You will not find too many people who are at senior levels or senior leaders who come down to the level of frontline people and learn and ask them to teach them, right? And the leaders with growth mindset have no problem going down to any level, maybe 5 levels below you, and then sitting with that person and the frontline person who handles a customer or who is doing some coding or whatever it is, right? To understand what they're doing and very comfortably saying, hey, I don't know this. Can you teach me this? Those with fixed mindset, leaders with fixed mindset will not be seen dead in a ditch asking for help from somebody below them, right? In terms of organizational hierarchy. So it's so important to have a growth mindset. Then only you will learn. And the moment actually you go down to somebody who is a couple of levels below you and say, I don't know what you're doing. Can you teach me? The vulnerability that you're opening up actually makes you far more connected to that person and helps you in building a strong bond. And that other person also thinks, wow, I mean, this boss is cool because he has no qualms about asking for help. So I found myself asking for help so many times with so many people in the last few years after I've sort of changed my mindset towards growth mindset most of the time. And again, in an organizational, in a context or in a corporation, what you will find is that people with growth mindset always push the boundaries of the roles that they are supposed to do. So typically you get a KRA, which is a key result areas that you're supposed to deliver to every year. But at the end of the year, you will have some people who would have done exactly as per KRA, and they will want their performance to be measured against those KRAs. And there will be some people for whom the KRA is just the bare minimum. And then they start going beyond that. And they are the ones with the growth mindset, right? Now, if a leader has growth mindset, the advantage of that is the leader knows that anybody can learn anything. So they never write off somebody who's failed in a particular project or a particular goal. They do not write them off as losers. What they do is they help them, mentor them, coach them, and hence try to bring them up, because they know that everybody has their abilities and everybody can learn new things. So that's the other thing that happens when you have growth mindset in someone. If they are leaders, they coach and mentor and support people. And hence they also support creativity, innovation, all those things in an organization.
Yeah, and something very common, and maybe it's hard to put a fact or a number to this, but something that's very commonly heard is, a new graduate who has just, let's say, completed a degree or some sort of qualification in a particular skill set. Something that often happens is they come into, for me, I've seen that amongst teachers. I've had friends who work in tech and who say, these people that come out, they don't really know how to apply a lot of this knowledge, or they have not had the experience to know exactly what to do in certain situations. And in that moment, I've seen superiors lash out and say, what are you doing? But I've seen that the better half, usually they decide that, this person is not supposed to know exactly how to do things right now, most likely. And those people that are more willing to put time and effort into raising up their employees, those employees turn out to be better teachers or employees anyway. It just seems like the natural way to go.
Yeah. And teachers, especially, many teachers actually suffer from fixed mindset. They never like to admit they don't know something in a class, right? Because they think they should know they're not expected to be Googles, right? They don't have to know every damn thing under the sun. I mean, they can admit that they don't know certain thing, and then they can learn from the students, for example. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and that's so important, because whether it's you're teaching, someone as young as 5 years old, or you're teaching a fully grown person, there is this moment where you realize, oh, this age group that I'm trying to teach now is not behaving the same way as they were even 2 years ago. When I started teaching, I had certain methods and ideas that I thought, oh, this works 100% of the time. And then 2 years later, it just wasn't something that I found was working as much anymore. So, I mean, culture and, the impact of your lessons or words is changing all the time. Everything has a frame of reference. So if you're not adapting constantly, then at some point you're just stagnant.
Absolutely. And that's, again, something about growth mindset, right? You are able to adapt constantly and move forward. So
definitely. So I do have a question, though, is, how we talked a little bit about how to inculcate that growth mindset in them. But, let's say someone has had a fixed mindset for a period of time. How do they start, let's say, unlearning some of that and trying to pick up a growth mindset?
Well, the good thing about any mindset is that you don't necessarily manifest it 100% of the time, right? Nobody is 100% of the time growth mindset oriented, and nobody is 100% of the time fixed mindset oriented. People do toggle between the two. You move from one to the other depending on the situation. Sometimes major successes then make you become a little fixed mindset oriented, and I'll come to some of that a little later. But the point is that it is interchangeable. You can move from one to the other. And what you need to do is to try and demonstrate a growth mindset majority of the time, or as much as possible, and be conscious of it, right? That's one. The good thing is that it's a very classic thing of nature versus nurture, right? How much are you born with?
Right.
I don't know if we covered this in the last session, but let me just repeat that once. So there's this huge debate about inborn qualities versus acquired qualities, right? Are people born with certain qualities or not? And they have done a lot of studies, including twin studies and things like that. They have looked at people who are identical twins and seen them under different conditions, being brought up by different sets of parents in different circumstances, and then seen what is the kind of difference they have in terms of their qualities or abilities. Today's science is there's a scientific consensus that 50% of what you are is nature, that's you're born with. And the balance 50% is nurture, that is what you can actually cultivate. And that 50% is a lot, right? I mean, 50% leeway, you can build pretty much anything that you want. There are, of course, some people who are naturally more predisposed because of the way they are born, but anybody can acquire it if they try hard enough. And again, I come back to what we said about the brain. You have how many billion neurons? Do you remember?
I don't actually. Neurons aren't working.
86 billion neurons in our brain, and those
let me get my notepad.
I'm going to ask you this in the next session also. Huh?
Yeah.
So, and these can be rewired by practicing, and that's exactly the case with growth mindset also. The more you consciously push yourself to be growth mindset oriented, the easier it is to slip into that mode, and hence the more majority of the time that you will be manifesting growth mindset. So that's possible.
Yeah.
And But people do switch from one to the other.
Mm-hmm. And, how much of that also is, let's say how much you're telling yourself? Because as I'm thinking about it now, I know that there are certain things that in my actions, I try to, let's say, embody a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But there are moments where, throughout that whole process, I'll be complaining or making a snide comment here and there to myself mostly. But I'm doing that as a result of, I'm sort of in between fixed and growth. It is at least my feeling that I'm trying to be as, let's say, focused and coming to the challenge with a sense of I can overcome this. But at the same time, like you said, maybe it comes out and it comes in. It's not a very consistent behavior for me. I know that's a little bit of a thing that I do. I like to make a joke here and there if there's something I'm doing that I'm not a complete fan of. But I mean, what about you? Is there something in your life where you've seen that fixed mindset in yourself?
I have had fixed mindset problems many times in my life. Okay, so you don't have to feel bad about it. And even as
actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I have a few things I've just.
So for example, I said sometimes your own successes push you into fixed mindset. So when I got into IIT, for example, I got into IIT with a rank of 129 out of about 3 lakh people or 300,000 people who wrote the entrance exam that year. Now, that's one kick-ass rank, right? I mean, 129 out of 3 lakh, and then I was, I think I was the top 3 from my state to get into IIT, and the only one from my district. So it is a big thing, right? And the entire family was talking about it. And everybody was saying, wow, Ramji, you are so intelligent. Right? And there goes. Then fixed mindset creeps in. So I go into IIT and I realize that pretty much everybody out there is one genius, right? All my classmates. And so I wanted to try to pick up good grades in the first year. I tried my best. I was at around 50th percentile, 60th percentile in the class. I realized that, maybe I don't have it in me to get to the top. Now, I wanted to be top in something. So rather than be the best in academics, I decided to be the best in terms of being a maverick. So I wanted to bunk all classes. I wanted to be the guy who sits outside the class and smokes his cigarette and, sort of making fun of the prof. I wanted to be the guy who would bunk classes or sit up the whole night and play cards till 5 o'clock in the morning just before a quiz. And my life just spiraled completely out of control. All because of this fixed mindset which grabbed me.
Right.
So I nearly did not graduate from IIT because of it. I flunked in so many papers that my my GPA, which started at about 8.4. Sorry, I keep confusing between GDP and this because GDP has also been going down a bit. So my GPA, which started at 8.4, went to 8, then 7.5, then 7, then 6.5, then 6, and finally it bottomed out at about 5.5. And I was nearly not graduating, but luckily I managed to pull myself up after that. So that's one time when it happened. The second time No,
I was just going to say that it's uncanny, the story you've just told, because not college, but during most of my, let's say, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I had a very similar mindset and experience. I mean, I was just, at some point, I went to a boarding school, and so there was a little bit more freedom. And at some point, I was just not going to classes because I figured in my head that, I'm so gifted that I don't need to do that. And I nearly didn't graduate from school.
Well, see, I told you all the time that we are very similar. It is that you are accelerating a little faster than me. Through all your stupidities. And hopefully, learning from that, right? So
Right.
So the second time when I can remember this happening was when I was the chief operating officer in Airtel Circle, right? And I was a big shot, right? I had reached that at the age of 34, which is by far the youngest COO in the telecom industry in the country. Now that success suddenly made me feel that, hey, I don't belong here. So I was in a group of, there were about 20 odd circle business heads who would meet every year in a CEO conclave. And I was petrified of opening my mouth, because what if I made a mistake and everybody started thinking I don't belong here, I'm an idiot, right? So even at the height of success, when you have reached that maybe one of the top levels of corporate India, I was still having a fixed mindset. So it can happen, it can hit you at any point in time. These are the times when I have manifested a fixed mindset. Luckily, I have manifested more growth mindset than fixed mindset. So that has helped me. Right. So for example, when I joined after Airtel, I was CEO with Airtel Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and then I had this physical challenge starting at that time. My autoimmune condition was kicking in, and I didn't know what is the problem. And I wanted to get to a larger city where my wife could again pick up working, because she had quit for some time, because we didn't know whether I didn't know whether I was going to die soon or not. It was that kind of a thing, because nobody was able to diagnose the problem, and I could physically feel my muscles going away. I was not able to walk properly. I couldn't balance. So I moved to Dell, and moving from a general managerial role like what I had in Airtel to a sales role in Dell, it was a come down actually.
Yeah.
Only thing was that the size of the business was huge. So I was supposed to handle $1 billion sales for Dell EMEA, that is Europe, basically the English-speaking part of Europe, which is Ireland and England. And the entire sales was happening through telephonic sales by a set of about close to 1,000 people sitting in Hyderabad. I was supposed to head that entire thing. So I was taken in for that, but it took me 3 months to reach there, because I had to wind up my responsibilities in Airtel as a COO, and it is a pretty large responsibility, right? So it took me 3 months to reach Dell. By the time I reached, they had restructured, and I didn't have a role. So I reached Dell to be the director for EMEA sales, and then they gave me a table to sit at and said, "You don't have any job right now." So it was a massive come down in life. And then I was told to, okay, there is a certification program we want to run for all the call taking agents in India, and to certify them on their abilities from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. Would you be interested in driving this as a program? So I was made a program manager. But the thing is, it is such an interesting field. I had no idea about certification. It required understanding of concepts like how to measure abilities, what is a competency framework, things like that, which are hardcore HR stuff. So I took it on and I learned it, and I rolled it out with 2 or 3 people from the US as partners. And it became one of the largest initiatives in Dell India, in Dell worldwide, actually. And Michael Dell and I sort of stood together on a stage and opened this entire initiative.
Wow. Okay.
So that is growth mindset, right? And then, of course, after I went through my crippling disorder and I was sacked from my company in HP, and I had to reinvent my life completely, there was only growth mindset to help me. I had to learn so many new things, how to deliver talks and what is positive psychology. I had to really get into that, learn to become a public speaker. I have failed a couple of times and miserably. There was once I was addressing 2,000 people. The first time I was doing such a massive in-person talk, and I completely bombed. It was one of the worst performances ever. I had to pick up myself again and then again go back to learning. So I have done that very well. And last 2 years back, uh, I consult with Azim Renji Foundation. So I've been editing a science magazine for school teachers because that's something I'm really passionate about. 2 years back, when the pandemic struck, the foundation, which is usually into education, they decided that they wanted to get into healthcare and support healthcare across. They needed somebody to be lead the strategy of healthcare for the pandemic response, who knew science well, who had an interest in science, who had a mathematical ability to understand models about the disease spread, who had the ability to influence people. And I was the right person at the right time at the right place. So they pulled me in for that. And I really was able to contribute so much to this work because I had a growth mindset. So over a period of time, I have been more and more towards growth mindset. Hopefully, I will now be married to growth mindset without ever divorcing it.
Right. No, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're saying, I think is so obvious and apparent in some ways, and yet it's something so difficult for us to understand and then actualize. Because even when you're acting on stage and you spend weeks and months for a play, for example, preparing your lines and figuring out where am I supposed to stand so that the light hits me, and this is where I have to be at this time so that this actor can say this thing, and this is my sound cue, and you learn so many things, and you do this for a month straight every night for 30 days, and inevitably what is going to happen is at some point either you or someone else is going to mess up. And in that moment, really, you just have a few seconds or less than that to either say, okay, well, that's it then, this is screwed, this is over, or to sort of pick yourself up and try and figure out a way around it. And when teaching acting and teaching drama, this is something that I remember once I had a student who went up on stage, totally blanked out, could not remember any of her lines. And I was actually standing in the crowd trying to mouth the words of the lines. And I remember she came down after that. Another actor sort of covered for her. But she had an integral part that she had to deliver. So she came backstage and I said, listen, you have to go back up there. You have to say the line. Right. One reason being that if she didn't, the play would have made no sense. But the other reason, honestly, being that in those moments where you failed, if you don't try again, if you don't get back up, she'll never do that. She would never want to go back up on stage. It'll always be a moment that the message you're sending that person is then, okay, there is a way to just get out of it. And, most of the time that's just not the case. You have to try again.
Yeah, I think I had no idea that drama, and you're right. I mean, so now I think of it, there is so much one has to learn, right? And so many mental demons you have to conquer to be good at doing a play, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It must be quite a learning, actually.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I did think of this just as you were talking about, getting to basically to your new job and finding out that there was new job, in those moments, did you never have a moment where you were sort of because I was thinking about it and I was angry for you. So the question I'm asking is, did you not get angry?
So over a period of many setbacks, today I spend very little time in wasting my life on figuring out, oh God, why did this happen? Or venting my frustration on people and things like that. Now I'm very good at just looking for solutions quickly and moving on. That time, yes, it was, that was one of the initial setbacks I had. It did frustrate me a lot. But very luckily, I was always sort of solution seeking. So I knew that in a large organization like Dell, once they restructured, there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. I mean, you got to take it and then you got to make the best of it. So I was very realistic in life, and that helped. And I still am. I mean, I am always able to take life as exactly what it is, and then try and figure out what best can you make out of it, given that this is the reality.
Right.
So fighting the reality and hoping that this is not the reality is just a complete waste of time.
And I guess that is part of growth mindset too, sort of being able to usher yourself into that kind of thinking.
Yep, very much.
I mean, we've talked about this a while now. Is there a habit or a particular, let's say, activity or something like that that you do or you would ask someone else to do in order to sort of try and get the growth mindset in the majority?
Yeah, just like most abilities, to learn them, you can embark on a series of daily practices, which will usually definitely help in building at least part of that. So growth mindset is exactly the same. So first of all, even knowing that there is a concept of growth mindset and fixed mindset, that helps. The moment you know it, you are conscious that in a particular instance, you are demonstrating growth mindset or not. And that itself will start pushing you towards growth mindset. That is number one. Number two, the one thing that really helps, and this is not a daily practice, but something that you should do in a one-time exercise, sit and introspect a bit and figure out what are the mental demons that have held you back during some of the setbacks in your life. And be very honest with yourself at that when you're introspecting, and figure out what are the specific things which held you back from giving your best, and is that because of fixed mindset? If it is so, then identify those specific things that hold you back, the specific mindset, or shall I say the specific thoughts that come to you which hold you back, and then try and address them, each one of them, one by one in your next time you embark on something which is difficult. So typically, if you are shy of doing something new or you're scared of doing something new, understand what is it that is causing that fear. And if it's fixed mindset, what is causing that fixed mindset? And then try and push yourself out of your comfort zone to overcome that. And try attempting those things which you've been shy of attempting. Keep doing that. Take the easiest one at first. Conquer that. Then the next one. Then the next one. Then the next one. Till you finally conquer the mountain, right? And the other thing is, whenever you have a failure in life, tell yourself very strongly that it's your lack of preparation that made you fail. And think of what all you could have done differently to have achieved the result. So that your mind is convinced that it is not you or your ability which has made you fail, but it's your lack of preparation. And that lack of preparation then can be addressed rather than a lack of ability. Because lack of ability cannot be addressed. But lack of preparation can definitely be addressed. So the more you tell yourself that, the more likelihood that you would try that. The other thing is, every day try something new in life. So, for example, if you're a coffee drinker regularly, try a nice cup of tea or a green tea or something like that, simple ones. Or you do a particular routine every day morning, slightly change it around. If you are taking a particular route to your office, try taking a different route, a different transport, whatever. If you are usually fixated on a particular kind of a shirt, try a different kind of a shirt, try something completely different. So the more you push yourself out of your comfort zone, the better you get at it. And hence the better your growth mindset becomes. And last but not the least, try and learn something new every month in depth. Whether it's a new language you want to try and learn, a new tool, let's say software tool that you want to try, or an app that you want to try, or a skill that you want to learn, instrument that you want to learn, pick up something and really go deep into it. So the more number of new things that you learn, the better you get at growth mindset.
Right. I mean, I think that is an extremely valuable lesson and a good place to close off our second episode. Is there any other thing you'd like to tell our viewers about the growth mindset?
Yeah, so the one thing that they, and since many of our listeners and viewers would be from corporate India, professionals, there are a few things that I can talk about how it would look in an organization which is vibrant with growth mindset. Number one is that in a growth mindset oriented, an organization which has got growth mindset at its core, you will find people who are all considering their KRAs only as a bare minimum that you do. You will find people constantly going over and above what is expected of them at work. And you will find lots of innovation and creativity thriving in the organization. You will find leaders who are nurturant, who are constantly there to support in terms of upskilling their subordinates, who are able to understand that failures can happen and still spend time with those subordinates to ensure that they succeed. So there'll be there's a culture of constant learning in such organizations. And there'll be a vibrant, creative, innovative streak in the organization, which will be very, very empowering. So I would request people who are listening, who are in leadership roles, to look at how you can transform your organization into something of a growth mindset organization. Well, of course, every individual needs to focus on how they can become the best version of themselves by totally embracing growth mindset and leaving behind fixed mindset forever.